In the case of workers who found work, most fell near or below the poverty line and were forced to get second and third jobs to simply survive, hoping they and their families stayed healthy enough to maintain the tenuous balance that would keep them off the welfare rolls. But in China, the scenario isn't a lot brighter. The International Labor Union estimates that in 2010, 13 million people will work as slaves. 1 in 12 children will be coerced into forced labor. Among adults and teenagers who've migrated from the provinces to the cities, draconian work conditions have led to a new word in the Chinese vocabulary, guo laosi, which describes young workers who suddenly collapse and die, having literally worked themselves to death. In the end, a robust manufacturing base will return to American soil because what is going on today is just madness. Over the past decade, America's manufacturing base has all but disappeared, and with it, millions of good-paying jobs. But it doesn't end there. Over the past 2 years, high-paying white-collar jobs in the high-tech computer and financial sector are also being farmed out at record rates to India, China, and tax-free havens like Dubai. As a matter of fact, the GAO, the Government Accounting Office, estimates, listen to this number, that 20 to 30 million American jobs, ranging from medical diagnosticians to computer programmers and financial analysts, will be lost over the next decade, causing once disinterested managers to now worry about their jobs. When I started writing the speech, I was focusing on external issues that I felt damaged our economy. But the more I researched, the more I became convinced that while poor trade policies, anti-productive trade policies, set us up for the fall, the real trip lever for our collapse was something that in the old days was called bank robbery. We all know something about bank robbing. I guess the most famous bank robber was Jesse James. When the James gang pulled a heist in Northfield, Minnesota, Jesse was already famous. He robbed banks the old-fashioned way, with a 6-gun and a fast horse. And he became a notorious criminal. But oh, how bank robbery has changed. Today's bank robbers wouldn't be bothered with a place like Northfield, Minnesota, because they've spent the last decade robbing the biggest financial institutions in the country from the inside. And they don't pack guns, they wear expensive suits. They fly in private jets, and for all the world to see, look like respectable businessmen. But they're bank robbers, plain and simple. In September 2008, Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson came to Congress seeking $787 billion to stabilize a banking system, U.S. banking system, on the brink of collapse. By January 2009, $8 trillion, two-thirds of the entire GDP for the United States of taxpayer money, had been guaranteed to major financial systems, yet the U.S. economy and credit markets remained frozen. Why? Because during that period, those same corporations were busy paying bonuses to the very people who presided over the meltdown. For example, just 1 month before it was acquired by Bank of America in January 2009, Merrill Lynch, which had lost an eye-popping $27 billion, awarded $1 million to each of 694 employees in bonus, and $250 million to its top 14 executives. Remember, this was happening just prior to Bank of America receiving $20 million in bailout money directly attributable to its takeover of Merrill Lynch. In other words, our taxes ended up financing the huge bonuses that were awarded and were accelerated to happen just prior to the takeover. When was the last time you got a bonus for losing money? $27 billion. That's a lot of money to lose. And $4 billion in bonus is a lot of money to pay. If this type of behavior makes your blood boil, it's the tip of the iceberg. Because what's been happening in recent years is the top of the financial food chain is scandalous. Worse, it's hollowing out the guts of America along with its future. Now a word about taxes. No one likes to pay taxes, including me. Yet, given the staggering federal deficits we're now running, there's no question that by year's end, taxes will skyrocket. In fact, the current deficit puts on the back of every living American citizen, man, woman, and child, the equivalent of a $200,000 bank loan. So while I'm not enthusiastic about paying taxes, I do want to make this point. If you pay your taxes, and I pay my taxes, I think it's fair to expect others to do the same. Yet according to the IRS, 59 out of the top 100 largest publicly traded corporations that do business with the federal government have established tax havens in Panama, the Bahamas, and Dubai, and pay no taxes whatsoever. As a matter of fact, today in the Cayman Islands, housed in a 5-story building called the Uglan House, 12,700 American corporations without a single employee or even a telephone in the Cayman Islands share a bogus address concocted by a team of slick lawyers to claim foreign residence and avoid paying taxes in the United States. Hey, I can claim I live in Buckingham Palace, but it doesn't make me the King of England. And it doesn't make what these corporations are doing right. If you like that, you're going to love SILO and LILO, which stands for Sales In, Lease Out, and Lease In, Lease Out. 2 corporate tax schemes so brazen, they'd make bank robbers like Jesse James and John Dillinger blush. Here's how it works. Wachovia Bank, for example, a bank that received billions in bailout money in 2008, decided to purchase the sewer system of Bochum, Germany. Yeah, that's right, a sewer system. Wachovia paid $500 million to buy the German city sewer pipes and leased it back to them. The city then used the $500 million to pay for the lease, after which Wachovia gave them a $20 million fee. In effect, a $20 million bribe had occurred with no real change of ownership except for one thing. That paper transaction allowed Wachovia to depreciate the Bochum sewer system and avoid paying the U.S. government a single tax dollar for the $4 billion it earned that year. An example of LILO is the First Union Bank, now Wells Fargo, who leased the 25-year-old streetcars of Dortmund, Germany. First Union paid $150 million for the front-end lease, but on the back end used the phony leasing of streetcars it never really owned to skip out on the money it owed not to some German city, but to the United States for profits that it had earned within our continental shores. Yet, it was this same non-tax-paying financial institution that claimed it needed and got hundreds of millions of dollars from the very government and citizens it had been fleecing for years. So here's my solution. If you and I carry our fair share of the load for education and national defense, so should America's global giants, who go AWOL on about $1 trillion annually that rightfully belongs in the coffers of the country that gives them the economic system, the infrastructure, and the entrepreneurial spirit that allows them to make their profits to begin with. All Americans are concerned with the defense of their country, its economic stability, and the future of their children. And that's what it's going to take to bring manufacturing back to the United States, an awareness on the part of the American people as to what's really at stake. And what's really at stake is this: the American way of life. If this goes on, 10 years from now, we will not recognize the country we live in. And so workers, employers, and everyday citizens ask, what can the government do to level the playing field, to turn so-called free trade into fair trade? A start, in my opinion, would be the adoption of a U.S. Industrial Bill of Rights. As a matter of fact, in an envelope in front of you, along with an American flag and a list of the senators and representatives in the U.S., is the Industrial Bill of Rights, which you can put a stamp on, address to your representative in Congress, and it will get through. It's not an envelope, so it will pass through fluoroscopes, and you can register your voice if you agree. Let's go over this Industrial Bill of Rights for the U.S. 1, all products and supplies used in the cause of national defense and the war on terror to be manufactured within the continental shores of the United States. For example, The Green Berets that Green Berets wore up until recently were made in China. Can you imagine? Just recently, there's a renovation going on in the Golden Gate Bridge. The steel they're using, this is a part of the stimulus package, so your taxpayer dollars, it's not being rebuilt or renovated with U.S. steel, it's being rebuilt with Chinese steel. So our tax dollars are actually subsidizing jobs there. This is insane. U.S. Congress, number two, U.S. Congress to represent U.S. citizens, not global corporations in trade negotiations. Fair trade, not free trade. If our borders are open to their goods, so China's, Japan's, Europe's, and India's should be open to ours. Fair trade, not free trade. Tariffs that encourage the manufacture and sale of U.S. products into foreign markets, not the reverse. It's about time Congress started working on our behalf. 3, U.S. Congress to stop substituting foreign policy for trade policy with World Trade Organization regulations enforced in Asia. No child labor, no slave labor, environmental regulations enforced, patent and copyright laws recognized with a legal system in place to enforce them, a clean record on human rights. 4, cooperation with the U.S. in our war on terror, energy policies that encourage oil independence so that we stop funding terrorist states. 5, close corporate tax loopholes now. Use the $1 trillion in recovered funds annually to seed investment for entrepreneurial startups so the U.S. can successfully compete with China and India in the decade to come. My friends and colleagues, today in 2010, a corporation's competencies must cover the gamut: sales, marketing, technology, IT, finance. More importantly, the integration and linkage of these disciplines must be bound together by a code that ennobles the work that we do, putting it on a higher plane than just money. In conclusion, today's workers, managers, and executives need to bring more than just skills to the table if we are to recapture our heritage as the foremost producer in the world of quality, durable goods. We need to bring a new and bold American ingenuity, one that is as pragmatic as it is visionary, as realistic as it is innovative, put forward by a population knowledgeable of our past successes, determined in our current approach, and courageous in expanding both American products and American values around the globe. This is the secret to bringing manufacturing back to American soil, and the goal leaders must strive for. It's a legacy we must instill in ourselves and in the culture of the companies where we work, manage, and lead. In the hard work of the individual, there's gratification. But our future as a nation depends upon the inspired work of the team, because effort and courage are not enough without heartfelt purpose and forward-looking direction. So let's you and I work together now to bring manufacturing back to American soil. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.